Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast, where we celebrate filmmaking, storytelling and cinema across the island of Ireland. So in today's episode, we're delighted to partner with GAZE International, the LGBTQIA Film Festival, and the National Talent Academy for Film and TV Drama, an initiative of Fís Éireann Screen Ireland that's managed by Ardán. So we're delighted to chat with filmmakers Lewis Doherty, Eleanor Rogers and Billy Buckley, who are this year's starGAZE participants. So this is a year-long mentorship programme that provides unique professional development for emerging LGBTQIA filmmakers and creatives. So just note that the deadline to apply for this year's scheme is Monday the 20th of April. So check out nationaltalentacademies.ie for more information. So thank you guys so much for chatting with us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, brilliant. So what I might do is just go around the group and get you guys to introduce yourselves and a little bit about your work and what you do. So I'm going to just call you out individually, and at any point as well, if you guys know each other, you've been on this fabulous program for almost a year together, that if there's anything you want to dig in or add to each other's practice, or like a comment on each other's work, you're more than welcome to at any point. So I will start with Billy.
Hi, thank you again for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. And yeah, so my name is Billy Buckley. I'm a queer producer from Kinvara in Galway, just very near the Burren. And my background is a bit varied. I didn't do the classic film school route. I studied abroad and did international creative business with a minor in the film over in The Hague in the Netherlands. And through that program, I was able to kind of explore different creative industries, but ultimately landed on producing. But yeah, I really love being able to bring a creative community of people together and realize a vision from start till finish. And yeah, I kind of started off as a production assistant intern with a production company called Heritage. They're a wonderful company, female-led, sustainable company led by Grania Dwyer from Cork. And they really taught me the ropes of what it means to take, like, just the ropes of production, but what it really means to take a group of people, a diverse group of people, a creative, hardworking group of filmmakers together. And during that time as well, I was able to kind of jump onto a few of the IADT grad films and slowly began to kind of forge my own path in producing. So since then, I've been on lots of different kinds of gigs, doing mostly short form, like music videos, short films, commercials, a few shiny floor shows here and there. Um, but yeah, ultimately my passion is producing narrative-led work, and particularly queer stories as well. And in 2024, I was selected for the National Talent Academy's first credit scheme with my short, Over the Moon, written and directed by my partner Rory Fitzpatrick and our co-writer Kai Donahue. And it's a really beautiful story about Jay, a young trans man who goes on a journey to see the stars and confronts his childhood spent in the Burren. So that's kind of been my most recent project, but I've also been lucky enough as well to produce some music videos for indie rock Irish artists like the Pillow Queens and Sarah Crean, Lemoncello. And I recently did a video with Lisa O'Neill, and we shot it out in the Burren as well. I love the Burren and love the opportunity to be able to foster productions in the West and to support other filmmakers from Galway and the west of Ireland. So that was a really wonderful opportunity. But yeah, yeah.
But that's really, really comprehensive. And like I think that yeah, the National Talent Academy's film that you mentioned, Over the Moon, it's such a kind of a beautiful, thoughtful piece. I was wondering, in terms of your role in working on that project, and it's very substantial, very emotional. Was that maybe your first time being that hands-on in that way, or were you always like having that as being part of your role in in Heritage and your other areas?
Yeah, it was definitely like the project itself. It's a really small budget. It's 7 grand, and we were the only team that were selected to film outside of Dublin and Wicklow, which automatically can bring up barriers because we don't have, equipment rental houses in Galway, and we don't have all the, like, yes, we don't have a lot of resources and facilities and like crew accommodation. So there was lots of begging, borrowing, stealing. I literally was calling in my neighbors to work on the film. And um yeah, I think with the scheme, it was just such a wonderful opportunity for me to really learn what it takes to fully realize the vision. And through that scheme, I was able to also get a mentorship with Maggie Ryan, a producer from Escape Pod Media. Maggie was a really wonderful light in teaching me how to kind of fill people's cups creatively when I wasn't able to financially all the time, which was a really valuable lesson. But that film was such a healing experience as well, because yeah, it was quite like almost cathartic, because I was able to bring a group of talented queer filmmakers, trans filmmakers to my home literally, and create a story together. Um, but yeah, it was really a wonderful experience. We got to also do a lot of different mentorships and workshops, and yeah, I learned a lot. It was really, really
Yeah.
rewarding, and yeah.
I'm going to delve right into the stargaze thing after this. This section is just for is just for you guys and your craft, if that's okay. Because there will be things that I'm going to unpack there, so I'll be back to on that. And now I'll go to Eleanor.
Hiya, how you getting on? Thanks for having me on. Yeah, so I'm Eleanor Rogers. I'm originally from the countryside in County Louth, from a farming background, and I've been based in Dublin for the last 10 years. How I kind of got into film, it kind of being from the countryside, there wasn't like a kind of big family. There wasn't a big opportunity to go to the cinema a lot. So I kind of pretty much was glued to the TV constantly. Like I was watching the soaps on like loop. I'd be like, right, time 6 o'clock now, time for 5:30, time for Neighbours, 6 o'clock, time for Simpsons, and then back on to Home Away, and then EastEnders, Curry. And so I was watching a lot of that, and then anything that my mum kind of would have taped off the TV. And then when I kind of got to my teen years, I think my older sister had the American Beauty DVD case, and I was like, oh, I just threw it on one day, and I think that was the moment probably where it changed my perspective on kind of storytelling. And then after that, I was, trying to watch like Requiem for a Dream on the family computer while my mum was doing a food shop. It's not really one you want to be, but like it really kind of changed my my world and stuff like that. So then after that, I went on to do to National Film School, IDT, like many. And so I graduated there in 2018, and I guess during college, I didn't get quite a big opportunity to do a lot of directing. And when I was going into my final year, I guess I kind of didn't have anything to lose really, because no one had seen anything. So that was like the best feeling as a filmmaker, because you can kind of just be like, well, whatever happens, happens. And I wrote and directed my first short film, Breast Friends, and it was produced by Philip Emo, who was the starGAZE participant last year, and that was actually his first produced film as well. And I just had
There's very recognizable stars in that as well.
Yes.
Like your casting is fantastic. You really we're on the ball with people that have gone on to do incredible things.
Yeah, like Eleanor O'Brien, who's in Botcha, and I'm pronouncing that right. Please let me. All the Gael goers will come for me now. And then like Ali Hardiman, who's been in These Sacred Vows, who's been in like loads of and then Slaney Power, who's been in Normal People. It's been really incredible to see like them kind of take off as well. And like the casting side of it was something I like really loved, and me and Philip got a really good group of girls together. So after that it kind of like took legs, and it went to different national and international film festivals. It won GAZE film Best Irish Short at GAZE. And then it went to Cork Film Festival, and then it went kind of to Underwire Film Festival in London, and then New Fest New York, and different international festivals. And it kind of grew legs, and it really it was really a fantastic experience. And I guess then after college in 2018, I So I guess I struggled a little bit after college because I had a surgery on my knee, so I was out of work for a while, and then the pandemic hit, like everyone, and then I decided that I wanted to, I guess, upskill a bit, and I decided I wanted to get a bit of set experience. So I worked as a sound assistant on set for about 3 years, and also was doing photography stills for people's shorts, all the while directing music videos and working on my own writing craft in the meantime.
And just, do you find being on set in those other capacities that you're sort of picking up tips or tricks, or alternatively what not to do?
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
like in that moment as you're on set.
Yeah, for sure. And working in sound was a great thing, because you're actually interacting with a lot of departments. You're interacting with the camera department, you're interacting with cast because you're miking actors, you're interacting with director, and costume design. Like, it's like everyone you're talking to. So you gain a lot of like you learn quite quick like how each roles are kind of working and stuff like that. And the work when I was working in sound was completely like invaluable, really, to be honest. You know, seeing, like, there'd definitely be times where I'd be like seeing, you know, directors talk to actors, and you'd be like, oh, maybe that wasn't maybe a good thing to do. But obviously it's a very high pressure, so obviously I understand, you know, the constraints a lot of, you know, filmmakers are under. But it was really incredible, like, you know, get to see everything from that position.
And do you think as well, from that kind of multi-hyphenate background in terms of what you're interested in, you know, like music and like photography outside of that again is something that, you know, you're honing your ability to do things then when you're doing music video? Do you kind of feel like you were kind of upskilling, like a baptism by fire each set, or is there a bit where you're kind of like too comfortable and you're almost like, this is too easy?
No, nothing, not at all. Like, I definitely see, like, I feel like if like how I kind of feel about myself, if someone puts me in a box, I just want to jump out of it, really, to be honest. You know, it's just like I have a lot of interest, and even in my, you know, in my personal life, like too many hobbies. Like, I'm constantly trying to do new things. So I definitely feel like everything kind of fuels like writing and directing. Like, you know, there's sound, you know, there's music and sound that really helps, you know, it's like half of your film. So it's so essential to have that completely right. And but yeah, it's been like, I wouldn't have it any other way, really.
And Lewis?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Lewis Doherty. I'm a queer producer, director, documentary filmmaker from Belfast in the north of Ireland. And I kind of started, well, like, from as a kid, we made loads of like really horrible home video skits. There's a YouTube video out there somewhere of me at 6 years old acting as a coal miner. My acting debut. It didn't get any awards, but, you know, there's still time. But I started from no age, kind of creating these little films with family. And then once I got into school, in the north, we have moving image arts, which is like our version of like a film studies. And I studied that in school. And interestingly, it was one of the first times I ever really met like a queer person, a queer role model in my life, my film teacher. And he was also one of the first people to really tell me, like, yes, you can, like, you're passionate about this, just do it. And so I felt really encouraged by that and validated. So after that, he told me about loads of opportunities happening in the north. And that was the same time that Game of Thrones was happening. There was all this American money flooding into the north of Ireland. And the indie scene in the north is so vibrant. And so I just started from 16, 17, bouncing around these short films as a volunteer, unpaid, whether it be as a production assistant or in camera. And I just kind of slowly built up experience in the camera team, in the camera world, and was starting to get my first credits and like big American like feature films that were filming in the studios in the north. And rising momentum, getting my first paid work, and then COVID hit. And just like what Eleanor said, everything came crashing down, all work. But during that time, it gave me a lot of time to kind of assess what I wanted to do and what I wanted to say as a filmmaker, because I produced a lot of scripted and film. And during all of those films, I felt like I was always chasing realism, like realism, all those like classic social realism films you make when you're in school and college trying to be like, I don't know. But then emerging from COVID, a good friend of mine and really, really talented Belfast filmmaker, a Northern Irish filmmaker called Daniel Ritchie, he came to me with this idea for a documentary about this skating community where he's from in the north. And it was the first time that someone really, I don't know, gave me the chance to be involved in documentary. And it was my first time DOPing a short. And just, I loved it so much. It was just a beautiful few weeks in the sun in Carrick on the coast with a bunch of kids in a skate park. And it was just so lovely. And that really unlocked this whole world for me. And after that, I just been nothing but focused on docs and like producing a few others, shooting, exploring a lot of themes like class and faith and conflict. And that eventually led me to wanting to step out as a solo director and say, I want to make something at my first doc that I'm directing. And at the same time, I was also developing a feature film called Saving Sodomy from Ulster, which is a bit of an exploration of queer history in Northern Ireland. And being an emerging filmmaker, I could never get the money needed to produce that film at this stage of my career. But in the North, there was a scheme for emerging directors to create like a micro short. And I went with that scheme and basically pitched a sizzle for what could be my feature. And that sizzle became Outlasting, which is a like archival short documentary I made exploring like the decriminalization of homosexuality in the north of Ireland. And I'd never really intended it to be a film that I put out to festivals. But I showed it to a friend and they were like, this is a short. Yes, you produce it as like a sizzle, but this is a short, put it out there. And so now it's kind of completely blown my expectations of where it's gone and where it's screening. Like I think it's done like 15 festivals or something so far. So it's been really, really lovely to travel with that and I don't know, have the confidence in my work from that experience. And then now I work in development in documentary in a small indie based in Manchester. And I do a bunch of other stuff and producing a couple of different shorts and features that I'm currently hoping to make at some point in the future. So yeah, that's me.
I love this. And I think you speak to something that I'd love to touch on. And what I might do is let people volunteer this, because I know it is that it's something I experienced the first time going into the industry myself. But it's, you know, you go in and maybe you get one or two opportunities, but then you find yourself a little bit stuck, or, you know, like COVID happens and you're, you know, suddenly working from home and there's all this challenges of like where now. And you know, if you're someone who's ingrained or who, you know, who's kind of grown up around the industry or have all these mentors or guides already that you can, you know, you can be kind of shown away or guided away. But it sounded like, you know, like quite a few people had to kind of forge their own path. But so I was wondering if anyone had an anecdote about, you know, like sort of that issue and overcoming it and what you did to overcome it.
Yeah, I guess I can kind of only touch on kind of a little bit lightly on that. Like I live with a filmmaker, photographer as well, Luke Faulkner, and we both have kind of come from kind of DIY kind of elements, kind of doing every role and everything like that. And I definitely feel that we both, you know, at any opportunity where, you know, we're lending gear, we're, you know, any type, you know, my gear is his gear. So I think, you know, being able to, you know, have that type of relationship with other kind of like friends and kind of queers that you can, you know, jump in and lend a hand when they're, you know, best in need and stuff like that. That would probably be what my how I would kind of answer that.
Yeah, I feel similar. It's like your community, the people around you, the people who really uplift you. Like I never went to uni for film. I never like had any access to industry. I just was a young, passionate kid and just threw myself out there, and thank God it stuck. But I did always feel very isolated because the kind of productions I was working on were predominantly male in like crews. The majority of HODs were all fellas. It was a real boys club, and that didn't ever really inspire any level of representation on screen. You would be lucky if there was even like one cast member who was a woman, let alone a person of color or a queer person. And so I eventually felt a bit disillusioned by that world I was in, but that was my only access to industry. And so I really, like, COVID forced me to remove myself from that space. And like, they're very talented people, they're very kind people, but I never felt like the work I was doing, the work I was supporting was, I don't know, making anyone feel seen. It was a bunch of fellas making fun films about war and stuff. They're great films, but it just didn't speak to myself. But it wasn't until I started to gain a connection within the film, like the queer film scene, that I really felt like I don't know, I was like, you know what, I can do this. And starGAZE is so much a part of that. It was so lovely to meet so many queer filmmakers in the South that I feel like I didn't have much connection to. And yeah, it was just inspiring.
Well, yeah, I think my experience is kind of similar to Eleanor and Lewis as well, but just in that I also live in a house with other filmmakers and we all kind of wear every hat and there's an editor, there's a DOP, there's an animator, writers, directors. So it's really cool and special to be able to live in a house with like such other creative and lovely people. And we've been able to kind of craft and forge our own little community of other upcoming filmmakers, and it's really special to see when your friends are able to like make really cool stuff and work with really talented people and bring those visions to life. And I think just people being able to be open and collaborative and just yeah celebratory of each other is really really important. And yeah, it's all, I think obviously filmmaking is probably the most collaborative art form there is, so surrounding yourselves with others who are like-minded is really just paramount to kind of to grow and to push yourself. And yeah, I'm lucky enough to say that I have that in my own home, but also as well through starGAZE that like Lewis said, we were able to make new friends and network and meet all these other new filmmakers, and it's kind of opened up this whole new fabulous queer world of filmmakers for me, because my background was so focused in commercials and music videos. It was really nice to just take time and have everything have such a beautiful queer lens. So yeah, it's very special.
And actually, I will say this in terms of representation and in the industry, in front of and behind the camera, the types of stories that are being told. I was just wondering if, Ireland is a changing place. We are, we make strides to be more equitable and fair. But, like there's still biases that exist and unconscious biases exist. And like, I was just wondering if anyone could kind of comment on, like how things are changing, what are the steps that maybe we need to travel? Because I mean, you've been in the industry, everyone now for a while, and we're watching things that are kind of slowly getting better in terms of, what we see and who's getting to tell the stories. And that's always really important. But I was just wondering if you can kind of even had a comment or thought about like the state of play as now, maybe how things have changed and, maybe where we can go with it.
Yeah, I might jump in on that. Yeah, so I was actually having to think about just even before I was coming on here, and I remember when I was on set once, there was a colleague in some other department basically had seen my film Breast Friends, and he was like, so you're just going to be doing queer film, that's what you want to do, and it wasn't coming from a point of like, oh, you do queer film. It was more like he saw it as a lower grade type of filmmaking. So I guess from his comment, I think about his comments so much, and I don't let it pass over me as much, but I think about it in like how sometimes like straight people see queer film and they see it kind of as, a lesser, well, some see it as a bit of a lesser kind of filmmaking. And even it was with the success of like something like Heated Rivalry, which obviously fair play to them, but I'm kind of confused about like why this particular thing has like gained so much success, whereas there's been so much like like queer films like over the years. Like I can't even like something like Weekend by Andrew Haig, or stuff like that, which is like not taking away from their success, but more just it's interesting to see like what gains success from a straight perspective. But yeah, I guess what I kind of hope to see from the industry is just where we get to kind of tell more nuanced stories, where like even for myself, like I'm very conscious, like obviously I've made a coming out film in a way, but I feel like going forward I definitely want to delve into things like more queer relationships where it's a bit where it's less rose tinted, and it's more nuanced in their in relationships where maybe the relationship is bad. I think this is things that I think we're now at the point where we need to be starting seeing stuff that the straight people get to see in their own films and TV shows, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. And I suppose that's it. It's like, what is the thing that breaks out into the mainstream and people go, this isn't this anymore? Because, even things like it is constantly changing, and because we're of it, we don't necessarily always see it. Things like people are just so much more open to watching subtitled films, even like just as a completely different example than they would have been before, and to invest in dramas that are like that. And it's like, yeah, how do we kind of like move that needle? And it's just slow and consistent, deep, interesting, complex representation. And just anyone else, are you guys?
I know, yeah, like carrying on from what Eleanor said, like James Hudson, who is the like incredible programmer of GAZE, they programmed I can't remember the name of the strand, but it was like the selection of beautifully imperfect, messy queer stories. And it's so refreshing to see that, kind of carrying on from what Eleanor said, because we've seen the coming out films. We've seen my film Outlasting, we've seen the gay people were illegal and then they rose up and they're okay now. Like, we've seen those films and we've made them. But it's now so refreshing to see the imperfect stories. It's amazing to see representation that isn't positive. I want to see the messy, non-binary, I don't know, barista poisoning someone's latte. Like, you don't always have to be the comic relief or the angel or the someone persevering through oppression. It's the beautiful lattice of all of these different kind of representation. And I think things are changing for the positive. Like the NTA are doing such amazing work in the South. And same with Northern Ireland Screen in the North. I think like they're really championing emerging filmmakers are wanting to tell like daring stories. And there's incredible producers across Ireland who are producing like really, really incredible work. But I think what is missing in general is like we're seeing stories that are predominantly white in a country that is like full of so many people from so many different backgrounds. And I think it's very rare that all the films that I've worked in the North, that there's ever been a person of color who's been a HOD. And that's crazy. And all of these programs and schemes and the industry will talk about how they're trying to amplify representation, but they're not also accessing and they're not addressing those things. So yeah, a lot more can be done.
Yeah, and I suppose exactly this, and it brings us very perfectly onto this game, because the thing that I was sort of kneeling at earlier was there's all these sort of gaps where it causes careers that are on maybe a high trajectory to drop because you don't have the immediate opportunity or the immediate guidance to do the exact right thing at that exact right time, and so much is about timing. And I do think the National Talent Academies and a scheme like this, it's just more holistic, where it's going, you're from somebody who's come out that other end and who is that bit further that can show you what to do. So I think that brings us really nicely on to what everyone's experience was on the scheme, and, like who you were paired with, what it looked like, what it kind of challenged you to kind of like evaluate about yourself and what you learned out of it as well. So I'm going to start, Lewis, since you were chatting just there.
Yeah, I think it was such a highlight of last year. Just that week in Dublin, it was just so much fun. Like, we got to go to the full festival. We got to meet each other and like sit in like private meetings with like many of the filmmakers for the features that were at the festival. And it was just so much fun. And I think the Sam and Evan, who are incredible people and talented filmmakers in their own right. They just made everything so smooth and a breeze. It was just such an amazing week. And I don't know, I felt very inspired by the whole week. I felt like it was maybe one of the first queer film festivals I'd ever actually been to in person. And so I just felt so at ease and so supported by the team. And since starGAZE, like I was paired with Rhys Corrigan, who's this really incredible Scottish Glasgow-based producer, who's been so helpful and supportive in me developing my own feature work, and is really demystifying the whole process for me. He's been like so supportive. And with like the support of starGAZE, it's really opened up for other opportunities for me. And just kind of, I don't know, it feels nice to be supported by a institution in the Irish film scene like GAZE and like the NTA. And it's made me be able to get opportunities, like I'm pitching at a festival over the summer in Norway with the support of the NTA. And I wouldn't have been able to get that if it wasn't for starGAZE. It's just been, it's been a breeze. I'm sad it's coming to an end, but I will be at GAZE every year from now on. So
And in terms then of maybe what are the kind of soft and hard skills that you were coming at the other end that maybe you got to hone or work on a bit?
I don't know if you guys agree with this, but like resilience. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us throughout the week, we're talking about the kind of struggles we've had trying to have a career and produce work as a queer person. And I think it was really inspiring for people to be so transparent with how they made their work.
Yeah, I think I had a very similar experience. I think again, like starGAZE was such a beautiful and rewarding time. I felt so recharged to be surrounded by so many talented queer filmmakers and to meet all of the wonderful guest speakers. Um, and yeah, it really just opened up a whole opportunity for us to take a step back and see like almost just like reappreciate like why we're in the industry and like why we do what we do. It's obviously no secret that like queer projects aren't necessarily always the first pick. We see a lot of like family dramas with farmers or gangland crime films in Ireland, and I don't think there's like a mainstream Irish TV show with like a whole queer or POC led cast and even features. Like we're really we there. It's not that there aren't stories. It's just that there people aren't getting into the right rooms yet. And thankfully now we have the NTA who are like running full steam ahead to get people there. Um, but yeah, it's a tricky one. It's just yeah, you really have to be able to like rely on the people who or surround yourself with good people who you can rely on and keep you motivated because like short films don't pay your bills. They never will pay your rent. They probably will put you out of pocket if anything. Um but you do it because you love it and because you believe in the story and the people, and it allows you to really just like figure out who you are as a filmmaker and what your voice is and what you want to say to the world. Um, and yeah, it was really cool to be able to get everyone's feedback, particularly the guest speakers, because we often find ourselves, at least I do anyway, I get amazing scripts and there's like challenging queer characters or trans characters, and I kind of feel like some ways, and sometimes when we're applying for funding, we're almost kind of like ticking a box, and you feel like you have to, in some ways, maybe censor your package or censor your scenes so that they're palatable to a cis-het audience. But with starGAZE and with the speakers, we were kind of able to just like kick the lid off that and really say like, well, I'm just gonna like make what I want to make and be very unapologetic about it. And they were really guiding us and being like, you can position it in one way and then shoot it and edit it another. It's all about how you package and present yourselves and really and truly just faking it till you make it. And yeah, it was really cool to be able to like, yeah, particularly like Travis Alabanza of Burgers and Bingo Queens and lesbian space princess filmmakers Emma Hobbs and Leela Varghese. They were just incredible. Yeah, there was just some really lovely filmmakers who gave us some wonderful advice, and I would definitely do the whole stargaze experience again in a heartbeat.
And in terms of softer hard skills, or maybe things, you know, like I think community resilience, that, you know, like that understanding of the nuance of that. But was there, you know, like anything that you came out that you didn't have before or didn't know before?
Hmm.
Or was it
Um,
just all working muscles that were sort of there
I
anyway?
think it was kind of just like recharging working muscles and building up confidence. Because this was like my first industry funded short. And again, I'm completely like faking it till I make it. But I was able to kind of put myself in a room with other people who were on a similar trajectory. And yeah, I was able to like network with Stephen Tilali, who's also one of the cohort for starGAZE. And Stephen and I are working on a project together called Ernest, which is a really lovely short film. And also as well with Venus Patel. Venus is another cohort member of starGAZE, and she's incredible. So it really, it was less about, I think stargaze was less for me about like what skills I have, and more just about like how can I take a step back and like reevaluate like what I'm best at, and like apply that to other projects. And being able to speak with like Venus and Stephen and Eleanor and Lewis and Jack, and yeah, it was just so wonderful. And yeah, it was really, really cool.
Fabulous. And Eleanor.
Yeah, no, the Stargaze, yeah, it was incredible. I won't say it again, but I'll what the lads have said. Like, yeah, it was really incredible. Like, Colin Thornton and Darren Thornton were some of the speakers at the Stargaze, and basically, I was like, they're from Drogheda. I went to school in Drogheda, and they did a date for Mad Mary and for mothers. And I just had decided that I really wanted Colin Thornton as my mentor. And so, yeah, so like from the get go, like Colin was incredibly like, oh, I don't, it was so great to even just like to talk to a mentor. Like a lot of my scripts are to do with kind of coming of age, sexuality, you know, kind of messy characters, and Colin like completely understood that. And you know, to be able to have that type of dialogue with, you know, a queer filmmaker, whereas like especially if you're talking about things to do with sex, like sometimes you have to be able to be open, and we had such a great dialogue, especially when you're writing a script. And he was fantastic. We met up probably once every 3 weeks or so. So it was like something I could like work towards. I'd be like, right now I have to get my draft ready for Colin, and then we would like spend hours there talking about it and going through it. And he was really good at the beginning of the mentorship. He was, you know, asking me like where the gaps are in my career, where I would see myself being. And like for me, it was like I'm ready to make my next short film, so we decided to focus on that. So it would be like, so basically the mentorship led me to be able to have everything already going into like the funding applications in January. So it wasn't like a rush trying to get everything all together. It was like, you know, working steadily at that. And he just gave me such a great, you know, made me feel really confident in myself, where like for years I kind of had, you know, a little bit of a low self-esteem, kind of self-deprecating kind of way of going on, which was not serving me at all. So yeah, it was just really incredible. And, you know, as a fellow Loud native, it was really great to have him be my mentor.
And finally, what is sort of next in the future? And that might be, is there anywhere even unexpected that you're planning to go to? That might be like, you know, upskilling in a different area as well as that next short.
Yeah, like I guess for the shorts that'll be the main. And I've been last year I was in a emerging residency in Unton in Dundalk, working on my first feature film. So my work has been it's always mostly coming of age kind of stuff, but this feature film will I hope to make it more coming of age / musical film, where I hope to help write the music for the feature film. So it would be it's going to be a big mountain to climb, I'm sure, down the road. But I have like, through that, the residency, I was able to get a first draft down, and basically I'm hoping over the next year that I'll, you know, hone in on the next draft, and then hopefully maybe pitch it to a few production companies and for more development funding.
It's okay, you'll have to come back and chat with us then when it's in production, and we'll have you here. But it sounds really exciting, and I think in terms of, you know, like developing those longer form projects and sort of being supported in them, I think that is definitely something, because I think as creatives, it's one of the things when we're kind of left alone in isolation. It's like, well, what now? If you could spend 8 months writing a feature and then you whip it out and you're like, actually, Element have just put that into production. You're like, God damn it, you know, something exactly the same. So it is that thing. It's in being supportive, and then, you know, like having those external deadlines. So it sounds very, very exciting. I really look forward to that. I think your writing is so witty
thank you.
And heartfelt, but like authentic. So I'd be very on. Sign me up for a ticket.
Thank you.
when
Thanks
it's
so much.
there. And Lewis.
Oh yeah, what's next?
So you've your feature, and that, like, where is that in terms of pitching? And is there, you know, any other maybe areas or avenues that have opened up outside of that?
Yes, so I've been working on that feature now for 2 years, and now I'm at a stage where I've done so much research and development, and I'm parking it to focus on producing shorts, because realistically, if I want to get that film financed in the future, I need to have a career and a discography. That's not. I'm not going to drop an album anytime soon.
IMDb page.
yeah. I need to have a filmography that can actually inspire courage, or inspire confidence with a funder. So I'm more focused on shorts at the minute. I'm currently in development for a short that I am pitching at the Screen Talent Europe forum in Norway, hopefully for funding, who knows. But also it's just a great opportunity to like pitch in an international forum stage and meet like incredible filmmakers. And I just finished production on my latest documentary, which is a really ethnographic documentary about the Sikh community in the north of England, exploring their faith, their religion, their culture, their community. And that's been a real wholesome joy to kind of live amongst these incredibly open people and celebrate their stories. And so I'm putting that out very soon. It's going to be on exhibition in Manchester Art Gallery, but then also out to festivals and things too. So that's super exciting. And then otherwise, I've got a new feature that I'm developing about the Gay Sweatshop Theatre Company in the UK, another archival documentary. So yeah, I'm just a lot of things that are, I now feel like I'm at a stage in my career where I have confidence in, and starGAZE has really helped that. I have a confidence in the steps I need to take to build towards producing a feature, producing a short. So now it's just doing that small incremental work step by step to get there and not be overwhelmed in the process. So we shall see. But I'm feeling, I don't know, this year I'm feeling very inspired and motivated. Like it's been an intense year so far, but I'm trying to, despite exhaustion or anything else, just keep that motivation going. And I'm feeling very creatively inspired at the minute.
Yeah, I think you've kind of touched on something where sometimes it can be kind of competitive and, you know, quite, you know, there's just so much rejection at every single turn. And, you know, like it can like become exhausting at points, but, you know, spending such a big amount of time in such a nurturing space, you know, a holistic space, you can kind of, you know, almost like heal over the scabs of rejection sometimes and go, actually, no, it is possible. And, you know, like the limiting beliefs, you know, like it is time to set them aside. But no, that sounds really exciting.
Like being part of starGAZE was so good for that, because I think despite all of us, we have our own backstories and struggles, but it was so lovely to hear so many similarities in our journeys. And I think that feeling of not feeling alone, like this person has also had that struggle in trying to get XYZ funding, it demystifies completely, because filmmaking, when you're on your own writing a project, it can sometimes feel very isolating.
Yeah, and I think everyone sees the really like the yeses and like the getting funding applications, but people don't see like the no's, you know what I mean, along the way. So I think it's very important to, you know, that everyone knows that, you know, it's not all smooth rolling the whole time, you know. Smooth sailing, Jesus. Smooth rolling.
And it's great, that caliber of mentor as well, because, you know, the people that it hasn't been smooth sailing for them. And, you know, sometimes you think, oh, it's just because I haven't done this. You're like, no, it's actually something that everyone faces at every single step of the way. And like part of the journey is just to sort of get used to it and factor that in.
Just put that folder on the Gmail. I have like a nose folder on the Gmail that just stays there. And I'm like, and I go have a look sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. The graveyard.
I don't know, but that's it. But you can kind of see what you've applied for. Yeah. I have a spreadsheet. Yeah. I have a spreadsheet of rejection. And every so often I fill in, I was like, oh God. But what happens is when you put it together, you realize actually it wasn't all rejection. Like when you get shortlisted, or, you know, when you're kind of invited down to a certain level, or, you know, like,
for sure.
It wasn't as much, because I think you kind of only remember your big wins, but like, you know, all those kind of like nice medium things are there. So I definitely find that very helpful. I also like, and you can be like, oh yeah, I've already submitted that there. Shit, better not do it again. Gosh. Billy.
Yeah, I suppose for me, like I was able, through starGAZE, I was able to connect with our peers, Venus and Stephen. So I'm working on projects with them, but I also got to as well strengthen my relationships with Leah Roach, who was another starGAZE member from last year. So this summer, Venus actually recently was awarded some Arts Council funding to make her first ever debut feature, which is really cool. It's called Roxy.io, and it's a sci-fi fairy tale following a digital entity that escapes into the real world and tries to become a human and save the world. So I'll be working with Venus on that over the summer months. And then as well, Stephen T. Lally and I are applying for funding with their script Ernest. Ernest is a lonely bureaucrat for the afterlife, finds his purpose upended by a dying child's imaginary friend, forcing him to reimagine how we die and what it means to truly live. And Stephen has recently completed the Director's Village in the Netherlands with Cinecid, representing Ireland. So Stephen and I are really passionate and excited to work together and collaborating on this film. So hopefully that will pick up funding very soon. And also as well, Leah and I are working towards a project called Spit You Out, which is a really cool, messy comedy drama about a messy trans woman called Celine. She's brilliantly chaotic, irony, poison trans woman, and she gets tangled up in this open relationship between these two characters called John and Marie. So between those three, I am kind of working towards supporting them in their visions and their crafts, but also still exploring my own voice and distinguishing my brand and who I am as a queer producer. And I'm excited to kind of further my path in that way. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working on these.
God, it sounds like everyone has a very, very, very full slate. So does anyone have any thoughts or comments or anything like that for one another, or anything they'd like to finish off with? Or
well, Eleanor, you mentioned earlier about not wanting to make a coming out story again. So what do you want to make next? What is next? I loved your like Breast Friends, and also it has like 1 million views, right?
Yeah, it has like 1.4 million views on YouTube, which is crazy. Amazing. I think the lesbians are thirsting after any type of
yeah, I'm just excited to see what you'll explore next.
Yeah, I guess kind of nuanced queer lesbian relationships, like, and yeah, I guess when like we said, like coming out stories, like I felt when I was young I was kind of a bit more naive and stuff like that, and then obviously I've gotten like 10 years on since coming out, you kind of see more like the realities of being a queer in the world of dating and relationships, and sometimes it's not as like good as you think it was going to be. And so like I definitely hope to kind of continue that on in my filmmaking, and hopefully bring in a bit more of like darker kind of storylines as well going forward.
That's great. Well, look, I can't wait to see all these projects. They just sound absolutely fantastic. And thank you guys so much for chatting with us. Yeah, we look forward to having you come back in the future with all of them.
Thanks so much for having us.
So much for having
Thanks.
us.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for listening. GAZE International LGBTQIA Film Festival runs from the 28th of July to the 3rd of August. And you can learn more about the starGAZE programme at nationaltalentacademies.ie. So make sure to subscribe as part 2 is coming shortly. And this features other participants, Stephen T. Lally, Jack Warren and Venus Patel.